Hello, all. Welcome to our podcast, The Prescription on Earshot Media. I am your host, Dr. Karan Thakur. I hope you're all safe and sound. We have a special two-part episode on mental health this week. And as we all know, mental health has become a big issue around which a lot of discussion has now emerged, especially in the past year.
Indraprasth Apollo Hospitals presents The Prescription in association with Earshot.in.
While the older generation was not very keen to bring such issues forth, the younger lot is much more keen to discuss these issues, talk about them, and normalize them in some way and some shape and form. But also, there has been a rise in anxiety and other mental health disorders because of COVID and the ensuing conditions that we've had to pass through. So this is our 11th episode of The Prescription, and in this episode, we plan to address some of the common and uncommon mental health issues that people have to live with. And I'll be joined by Dr. Achal Bhagat, Senior Consultant in Psychiatry at Indraprasth Apollo Hospitals. Many of our listeners would remember that he gave his expert advice in the third episode on anxiety during the pandemic. Dr. Bhagat, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Karan. Happy to be back here.
So let's dive straight in. Dr. Bhagat, I'd first like to cover in this part anxiety and depression. Surveys and research suggest that there's an increase in prevalence or at least reporting of these two conditions. As one observer has put it, we are living through an age of anxiety. So what is happening?
Right. So the reality is that more people are describing their experiences as anxiety. The word is becoming more prevalent. Whether the illness itself is becoming more prevalent or not, we don't have surveys to support that beyond a point. But over a period of time, anxiety has become a thing that you seek help for. It has become a cluster of symptoms that is more identifiable. The numbers are also rising to some extent. A significant number of people report anxiety. A significant number of people also report depression. A significant number of people report symptoms of both anxiety and depression.
Right. So what is anxiety? How do we define it?
Well, anxiety is a very broad term, but the core features of anxiety is an apprehension about the future, a worrying, intolerance of uncertainty, and some physical symptoms that accompany it, like palpitations, cold sweats, an empty stomach in the feeling, an empty stomach feeling, and also things like tremors, things like not having a sense of as if things have changed around you, instability while walking. All these could be symptoms of anxiety.
Right. And is some amount of anxiety normal?
A degree of anxiety is normal. Again, the word normal is a very difficult word to use. So if the distress levels are high and if it is causing dysfunction, then it's more likely to be a disorder. The other thing that that needs to be included is that anxiety at a thought level always leads to some behavioral difficulties. People start avoiding the situations that make them anxious. People could have a free-floating anxiety, or people may start having safety behaviors that prevent them, that ease the anxiety for them.
Right. And these are sort of coping mechanisms, you would say?
These are coping mechanisms, but they're also symptoms. Avoidance is the most important way of maintaining anxiety in a person.
Right. And as you said, it manifests in different physical signs or symptoms. And there are different types of anxiety as well, isn't there?
Right. As I said, there could be a free-floating anxiety, a generalized anxiety, which is there with you all the time. You could have episodic panic attacks. You could have avoidance of places where you can't get help, or there could be an apprehension of anxiety, which in itself is an anxiety. till recently, obsessive compulsive disorder would be considered as a part of an anxiety disorder. Now it's been reclassified as obsessive compulsive and related disorders, but largely it is an anxiety disorder. There could also be trauma related anxiety, which people could have. There could be anxiety in social situations. There could also be phobias of certain specific types.
Right. And this can happen at any age or any age groups.
Anxiety can happen in any age group. The youngest people that I see are very early on. Something like obsessive compulsive disorder or separation anxiety can even happen in childhood. Free-floating anxiety and panic attacks can happen in adolescence. There could be exam-related anxiety. There could be unemployment-related anxiety. There could be anxiety around having a breakup. There could be relationship-related anxieties. And as you grow older, there could be work-related, relationship-related anxieties, parenting-related anxieties. So the situations may be manifold, but the reality is that the form and the process of anxiety remains the same.
Right. And when does this become a clinical issue?
When the distress is significant and when there is avoidance and when there is dysfunction that arises out of it. If anxiety is at a level that you are able to manage it, if you are able to address the distress without it leading to dysfunction, there is manageable anxiety. If the distress levels are significant and if the dysfunction is significant, which means that your avoidance of your everyday activity, if it comes in the way of various domains of your life, then it becomes something that should be treated.
Right. And around this subject, of avoidance, I'm sure there is a lot of avoidance to actually seek help also for various reasons. I mean, it could be that, you don't want to seem like a burden, or you may seem that, it's in passing or it happens to everybody. What are some of the common things that actually stop people from seeking care?
I think there's stigma around seeking help. Mental health problems, unfortunately, as we talked the last time, get clubbed into and categorized under this worry that will people think of me as weak? Will people think of me as incapable? Will people think of me as dangerous? Or will the medicines that are given for it, will they be addictive? Will the medicines that are given for it, will I have to take them for a lifelong period? Will I be able to do what I want to do? Will I have sexual side effects of these medicines? Less information becomes the enemy of seeking help as well. So while there's stigma in the society generally, worry about what the treatment might do to you is also a thing that becomes a difficulty. But even more importantly, this sense of being weak somehow if you are seeking help. Strong people, brave people don't seek help. That's the assumption. But one needs to have a contrarian view on that. It is actually brave to seek help. It is very difficult in this country to seek help. There's a lack of resources. There is a lack of availability of human resource. There's a lack of information. There's a lot of ignorance. People anyway have long periods of time before they start seeking help. Because of the lack of resources. So if you are going through anxiety, please inform yourself. Don't live with it because it's treatable. You do not have to suffer the impact of anxiety. It is easily treatable.
Right.
And it's a common mental health problem. It's more common than some of the very common physical illnesses that one knows of. It's more common, for example, than something like asthma or tuberculosis. It's a significant number of people live with anxiety.
That's very reassuring. So that's anxiety. And if we move to depression, there are some statistics coming out of the National Mental Health Survey 2016, which says 56 million Indians suffer from depression and 38 million suffer from anxiety disorder. And this is, mind you, 5 years back, and the numbers would have increased, or at least the prevalence and reporting would have increased, as we just discussed. And there's a lot more talk about depression now, which is a welcome sign. But my first question around depression is feeling blue or feeling sad or downcast the same as depression?
So depression is also used in a very wide way in our society. Anybody who has a mental health problem actually of any kind says that they're depressed.
Right.
It will include people who have had a bad day at work, or include people who have had a relationship difficulty. It will include people recovering, from a physical illness. It could include people, mothers who have given birth to a child. Anything that lasts for a few hours or a few days and does not cause dysfunction and distress, and does not have biological symptoms like loss of sleep, appetite, could be a passing phase. Anything that is in response to a stress and is short lasting could be a passing phase. It is depression in the lay parlance, but it might not be a depressive disorder.
Right.
A depressive disorder has two clear symptoms: a lack of interest and sadness, a sustained change of mood, sadness or irritability, or low mood for a period of more than 2 weeks. If you have any of these two symptoms, along with a sleep disturbance or an appetite disturbance, or decreased interest in things, an inability to enjoy yourself, and if you, coupled with that, have helplessness, hopelessness, lack of self-confidence, ideas of self-harm, if these cluster of symptoms are coming together, but primarily lack of interest and sustained change of mood, if these cluster of symptoms are coming together and have been there for more than 2 weeks, that means that you have a depressive disorder. You could have a depressive disorder, and you need to seek help for that.
Right. And does untreated anxiety lead to depression as well?
There's an overlap between anxiety and depression. I don't think anxiety leads to depression or depression leads to anxiety, but there's comorbidity. Illnesses can, they can come together. 30% of people with anxiety may have depression, and 30% of people with depression may have anxiety. Or you could have, from the very beginning, have a common set of symptoms, which includes both anxiety and depression.
Right. And what are the main causes of depression? Again,
whenever you're looking at any psychiatric disorder, the causes are biological, psychological, and social, right? Let's do the psychology first, because the biology remains the same as what we talked about in anxiety. There could be a neurotransmitter imbalance. In the psychology of depression, the simplest way of understanding depression is this: that there's a depressive triad. There's a depressive triad in our thoughts. You think negatively about yourself, you think negatively about the future, and you think that the world thinks negatively about you. And this depressive triad is called the Beck's triad. And if you have, this triad is like a prison of depressive thoughts, and these thoughts keep on coming over and over again, and keep on making you move into a level of inactivity. Like in anxiety, avoidance maintains anxiety. In depression, inactivity maintains depression. But your thoughts push you into a level of inactivity.
And if I were to have had a bad week at work, let's say, or there are other issues, domestic or otherwise, and I'm feeling sad, how do I know that this is not clinical depression now?
As I said, it is a continuum, right? If you had a bad week at work today, and you also had a bad week at work 2 weeks ago, and another bad week at work another week ago, and your common response to that is that your confidence is going down, and you're feeling helpless, and you're feeling hopeless about the future, then it could be that you are feeling depressed.
Right.
To the extent that you need treatment. Or if you have had continuous period of 2 weeks of low mood, then also you could be depressed.
Right. And can it be episodic? Can it come and go? Depression as
Right.
such?
So you may have an episode of depression, and it may last for a few months without treatment, and it may go away spontaneously when the social circumstances recede, or when when you make an effort to address some of the issues around you, you challenge some of your thoughts, or you have been under treatment. Depression may go away, and then it may recur. So there's something called recurrent depressive disorder, where it keeps on coming back over and over again. So it may be useful to look out for symptoms of relapse and continue treatment till the time your psychiatrist is asking you to continue treatment. Stopping treatment is the commonest cause of relapse, if not taken adequately. There could be another thing which is called a bipolar depression, which means that the depression occurs in the context of a swing of mood, that you could have a low mood, or you could have what is called a high mood, hypomania, overactivity, overconfidence. And when depression is a part of this, it could be bipolar depression. Such a bipolar depression could also be precipitated by the treatment that you put in place for depression. That is the medical treatment that you put in place for depression.
Right. And is it possible that you could be happy, or going about your work or living your life, and also be depressed or subclinically depressed? Is that possible?
Right. So there could be two ways of. So there used to be a concept called masked depression, which is still probably a common thing in India. That people are the dysfunction is not that significant, but the lack of interest and the low mood is persistent. And while the severity is not so much that it causes dysfunction, but it could be an ongoing process. Such a depression could be called dysthymia. It's an ongoing process. It's masked depression. It doesn't come through visibly, but it still exists. The other kind of symptoms that you might have, where you might not have helplessness, hopelessness, but you might have a lot of physical symptoms for which your doctors have not been able to find a cause. You might have stomach ache, or you might have bloating, or you might have headaches, you might have multiple physical symptoms which have not been explained by a physical cause. And these could be somatic symptoms of depression itself.
Right. And do genes play a role in depression?
Do genes play a role in depression? Obviously. There's a genetic predisposition that is thought of in most psychiatric disorders now. Okay. People make a mistake that when they think of psychiatric disorders as unidimensional. Psychiatric disorders are multifactorial. Genetics plays a role. Early childhood and adverse events in early childhood play a role. Parenting styles play a role, without blaming the parents, obviously. Your education or lack of it, your experiences at school play a role. The way you look at yourself is formed through various experiences. So a lot of your experiences play a role in the way things are for you, the way depression comes forth. So there could be a genetic vulnerability. There could be a lot of psychological vulnerabilities that you've acquired over the period of time. And then there could be a precipitating event, like a loss of job or like COVID. And that is when depression might be precipitated. So there could be social events that precipitate depression, or you could be facing violence or abuse. And it could be a number of things that contribute to the causation of depression.
Right. And what about gender? Is it skewed according to gender?
Yes. A number of more women report depression in some ways. Less women are able to seek help for it. While research at different ages, different people might report depression in different numbers, right? So for example, young men are more vulnerable to suicides, dying by suicide. young women are more vulnerable to cope to self-harm. So the numbers in everyday life, I don't focus on the statistics all that much. If you are the one person who's going through depression, that matters more than what the numbers are.
And since it's so multifactorial, unpacking this obviously would require, a treatment modality which is also multifactorial. Is that right?
There have to be a comprehensive treatment for depression would require a medical treatment, psychological treatment, and support for changing your social circumstances. So, for example, if the depression is coming at the time of postpartum, post birth of a child, you will need medicines for it. You will need to have a gynecologist who identifies it quickly. You will need to have family who are not pressurizing you to be the happy mother. You will need time off from work because of this depression. And you will need a psychologist who helps you challenge the negative errors of thinking that you've developed.
Right. And my last question for this section is, so if you are depressed or you've been diagnosed or you feel you might be depressed, what should you do?
It's brave to seek help. Please reach out to someone to seek help. Again, if the symptoms are not that distressing or the dysfunction is not that high, self-help is one method. There are books that you can read. There are apps that you can use. If the level of distress is higher, talk to your GP, talk to your gynecologist, talk to your colleagues, friends. If you don't know what to do, then they might be able to help you reach out and seek help. Ultimately, do go to a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Let one of them be in charge of the treatment who refers you to the other so that they work in tandem. Trying to go to multiple doctors at the same time, trying to have a lack of communication between the people whom you're working with is not helpful. Also, as organizations where people who come who are depressed, we need to recognize that there's a need for creating mental health policy to help people with mental health problems. So accommodations like mental health days or mental health leave, a return to work program, a flexible work program are all required to be put in place if a workplace has to be inclusive and encourage the mental potential of people, because people with mental health problems need not be thought of as incapable. They are as much a mental potential as people without depression.
Dr. Bhagat, thank you for helping us better understand anxiety and depression. In our second part, we will cover bipolar disorders and schizophrenia. So do join Dr. Bhagat and me to unravel some of the issues around these two conditions. Till the next time, stay happy and healthy.
Earshot, here and now.